My honest advice for aspiring software engineers: 2026 is tougher. There's fewer entry-level positions. It's a lot more noise. It's hard to find the signal out of it. I would suggest stop fearing AI and learn how to ship AI-powered products, because software engineering is basically AI engineering, except that you are using AI models for part of the solution. I pivoted from VFX, film, feature animation, and AAA games to creating patents in the AI space, and you can too. One of the things that's inevitable when you start off learning anything is you're going to feel dumb. It's inevitable. And the thing is, that's the point. When I started off, when I was starting off learning how to code, I was the only person in class that never experienced it before. And when the teacher was giving out of the examples, everyone understood it and move on. I definitely felt dumb at that moment. And it felt normal, especially if he explained a concept, I didn't get it. I had to go back and read it over and over. It took me 2 weeks to get the basics of it, because there's no precedence for me beforehand. I never did anything like it before, right? But for me to pass the class and move on, I was basically desperate. I had to basically focus on this, and that fueled my focus to get through it, is because it was a do or die situation. If I don't pass this, I cannot move on. And I don't want this little pebble be what stumbled me from my long-term career, or long-term goal of what I want to try to do, right? So basically what I learned how to start coding is, I luckily had a friend that did the same course the year or the semester before I did, right? So he started explaining to me how things were done and how he went through the same type of problems and he fought through it. But the main thing I learned in general is, the first thing I try to do is learn from people who are better than you, right? Be surrounded by people who have already done this already to guide you through, and it will help your journey and help you get through the stumbling blocks a lot quicker and a lot less friction. You're still going to feel dumb at the time, but at least you'll learn one thing at a time, and will overcome your problems one step at a time. You're getting closer and closer to your goal. A big advice that I give people when you're starting off is stop trying to learn everything. I would not suggest you try to learn everything. You're not going to learn everything in one shot. Avoid shiny object syndrome. Basically what that means is, whatever's hot, what's trending right now, you stop with your current learning path and learn all about that, because that's what's in the news. That's what everyone's talking about. The thing is, you want to finish what you start and have that under your belt and stick to your plan, right? And the other thing is, instead of trying to learn everything, learn just in time. Learn what you need to learn to move past that point and move on. The more you encounter it, the more you're going to learn about it. But the main thing is to get to the goal, get to the end. And one thing that I was just mentioning about avoid a shiny object syndrome, which is very related, is pick one lane and go deep, meaning go from end to end. Start from the very beginning to it and figure out what the end is and go all the way there before you start looking at other trending shiny object. Because what happens, why do you want to go something from end to end, even if there's technically something better out there, is at least you have a metric. You know what the end looks like. You have a baseline, and you can compare any new technique, any new strategy or learnings you get against what you already know. Either expand on it, improve on it, but at least you have an end result to show. Whereas if you try to go and learn, especially now with AI, every week there's something new that comes out, and you chase a shiny object, what happens is you're going to keep moving this goalpost. So now this new end's going to be here, or you're going to go down a rabbit hole like, oh, this is a new thing. Let me start learning about that. And then let me start learning about that, because you start learning other things, that your goal never ends. You don't have anything to show. And you only learn a little bit surface level about some trending things, but at the end of the day, you can't actually solve anything. Here's a very important one. Build things, not knowledge. Basically, what I'm basically on that is, you should be optimizing to actually build final, real, actual, tangible end results. Knowledge you'll gain along the way to be able to build things, but it shouldn't be your primary goal if you're trying to be an AI engineer. Now, I understand that might sound counterintuitive when you first think about it, but I'll give you an example. one thing I would say, like, implementation beats theory. And I'll give you a real life example. When I was working on my startup, I was working around with other startups. And obviously when you're working with in the AI space, you're dealing with, especially when the cutting edge, you're dealing with PhDs who are actually creating this, creating the models, creating the cutting edge. So at the time, crypto was really, really, famous, or really, really popular. So PhDs would meet every Sunday and talk for hours about the best strategies and algorithm they could use. Now, the thing is, after a while, I realized not a single one of them was actually investing anything in it, right? So I stopped going because I didn't see the point of talking about what's the best solution or the best way to do something when you're not actually doing it. As opposed, I met other people who were actually doing this and were being successful at it. They showed me their portfolio and what they did, and they were not as knowledgeable as the PhDs, but they're taking action and getting results. You can't do anything. Unrealized potential is the same thing as not doing anything at all. You actually have to take action. Of course, you're going to be terrible. You're going to feel dumb at the beginning, but at least you have a benchmark. You've done something and you know, okay, the next time what I need to do to improve to move forward. That's why it's very important to build something, to have a baseline, a benchmark, to know, okay, this was good, this wasn't good. Let me change this next, right? That's why I say your finished work wins. Your best work is your finished work. If you're not doing anything with your knowledge, potential is the same thing as doing nothing, right? You could be the greatest in the world. You could be the greatest basketball player, the greatest football player, soccer player in the world. If you're not actually out there playing to actually try to win anything, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing as you could be the best, but it's the same thing as not doing anything, because you're actually not doing anything. You're not getting any real results, right? And you want to ship real problem solvers, because when you go and approach people, they don't care how you build it or what was done or your background. They have a problem and you say, hey, I can solve this problem. When you hire a plumber, when you have like a leaky faucet, do you go and ask them what technique or what tools they use or how many years of school? You just know you went online, you saw great reviews, they could solve your problem, you hire them. You went away, they fixed it, it works, you're happy, and then you pay them. That's pretty much how it works, right? And the same thing in AI. You don't need to understand every mathematical concept behind the neural networks. You just have to be able to know how to use it and get the results, right? You need to build something that actually works. That's the key thing, that actually works, right? So an example of this is just an everyday thing, right? You don't need to understand how a car works. You just have to know how to use it for Uber to hire you to be a driver. Nobody, when you apply, they give you a mechanics test to see if you know what's under the hood and how to build an engine from scratch. They just want to know, can you actually be a driver? Can you pick people up? Or if you're doing Uber Eats or DoorDash, are you able to go to a restaurant, take it, and deliver it? That's what they care about, the end results. Now, this is probably one of the most important skills you should develop. Learn to actually connect tech to the business value. That is what businesses care about. You just happen to be using tech to get there, right? You want to be able to translate tech to humans, explain technical concepts to non-technical people. They're not there to actually learn how it actually works. They want to know what's in it for me. Why should I care, right? And one thing I want to talk about this is that what works is if you're able to explain it as if you're like a 3-year-old to understand it, then you're actually communicating well. Remember, clarity is better than cleverness, right? And I'll give an example of this. I was at EA. I was invited to DEF CON to be a presenter for one of the technologies I was building, which eventually I got a patent for, and they still use till today. Now, at the time when I did the presentation, most people are not in my space in terms of like the discipline, so they don't understand all the intricacies if I start using the jargon and whatnot and what came about. And even if you're not on the actual project, you're creating and inventing things they haven't seen before, they won't understand it. So I dumb it down. When I say dumb it down, but I simplified the language so anyone could understand. I heard later on that some of the more technical people were like snickering in the crowd, saying, "Oh, of course I know how to do this. This is so simple. Why is you making it sound so basic?" Right? Now the thing is about that, when the person who told me this thought I would be offended, and I started laughing, and to myself, I'm like, okay, well, the thing is, I'm the one on the stage, and you're the one in the crowd. They're listening to me while you're making your comments because of the fact you're not able to communicate this to other people, right? And the end result of it is that I got a patent for this and you haven't, right? So there is actual skill set to be able to explain. There's still value to this, to be able to explain complicated things to non-technical people, to get them to understand what is the business value and what's in it for me and why should they care. You want to be able to tie your work into your ROI. ROI means return on investment, right? Return on investment, right? So basically, the thing about return on investment is that here are two different things. Like a common person, an average person would think, okay, well, how much do I have to spend to make this work, right? And they're thinking opposite. They're risk adverse. They don't want to lose money. Whereas a business person would think, okay, well, how much will I make if I invest this money into this, right? You have to be able to let them know that the how much they invest, in terms of capital, in terms of money, or in time or resources, whatever it is, they're going to get more out of it at the end of it. That's what you're trying to do. You just happen to be using the tech to be the vehicle. And nowadays, now AI is more popular. You're shifting from a software engineer to an AI engineer. All you're just now putting in the mix AI models, but you're still doing the same software engineering, is that you want to show that there's going to get a return on investment, that if they invest in your solution. And what's the best way of doing that? Is showing the end results and how it actually impacts the business value. And I'll give you an example. My first AI engineering job, I was building prediction models for a stock market, right? So the obvious metric that mattered here is, did it make money? That's all that they cared about, right? You can't BS it. You could show, if you're in the academic world, yeah, you could have papers and then show like, okay, well, these metrics are better than the state of the art, what it was before. That's great. In the real world, if you're coming an AI engineer and you're not a researcher and try to move forward, and I'm not to put down PhDs and PhDs and researchers, they're needed because they are creating the models of the future. Their future thinking, doing blue sky stuff is needed, but it's a different realm. We're talking about AI engineering and connecting business value and making actual something tangible. So the metric in this case for having prediction models for the stock market is, does it make money? Nobody wants your algorithm if you lose money on it, or if it breaks even. What's the point? It's the same thing of doing nothing, right? You have to show impact. You have to show how it actually impact. Nobody cares about metrics. You can make up all the metrics in the world, but if in this case, if it's not contributing to, in this case, their bottom line, or whatever domain you're in, if it's not actually achieving the goal they want, they don't care about it, right? So for me, I had to create these algorithms in this example, and I had to send the working ones to the portfolio manager, right? They were the ones who actually making the real investments decisions with real money. They didn't care about the accuracy metrics. They didn't care if I beat some benchmarks in terms of a paper, of like if I went to a Europe conference and like, oh, this is what the best paper shows and my algorithm is now better than that. They cared about one thing: does it make money? Because that's the point of the job. That's the point of why their clients went to that portfolio manager, because they felt that they're gonna make them more money than if they did it on their own and just put it against the S&P 500, for example. And one thing about that is that they didn't want me to teach them. What I mean by that, like in that example where if I'm doing the AI models and I'm getting an algorithm that shows that when I did back testing that is outperforming in the past, meaning is making more money. They didn't want me to teach them how it works or what it did and what's the research method. What they want me to do is interpret the data, which is going to be your job. Again, this goes back to why it's important to be able to explain it to non-technical people, because they hire you to interpret the data. They want you to give recommendations given the circumstances, but it's up to them to make the final decision. And if you want to see an example of this, granted it is a drama, it's a show, it's a fantasy, but that's basically how it works in real life. When you go to these meetings, when you have like a data scientist or an AI engineer, depending on your field, but basically people who are working in the field, they visualize it because they're interpreting the data, they give it to the decision makers, and they give their recommendations because you did all the legwork. Same thing with an analyst, it could be a marketing analyst or like a business analyst. This is what they're doing. They're doing all the crunching on the numbers, They tell you the interpretation of it, and they give the recommendation, give them the circumstances. Now, the decision makers, usually the executives or whatnot, are informed and they make the final decision. Example of this, look at Captain Picard on Star Trek Next Generation. Watch the episodes where they encounter a new alien and the new peril of that episode and have to get out of it. What Captain Picard does, he goes around his console, like basically his staff. He asks his number one, Riker, Lieutenant, his Riker there, and then he asks Data for the recommendation. You ask everybody that's involved. Also ask Troy how she feels about it. And given all that information, he makes a final decision. That's basically your role if you're becoming an AI engineer, a data scientist, or an analyst. That's what you're doing. You're not there to teach him. Captain Picard doesn't want to be there and learn everyone's craft. They just, given your information, given what you know, to interpret it for me, give me your recommendation, and then I'll make the final decision. That's your job for that. Another thing that people overlook is that your background is your superpower. I can't stress this enough because your past experience matters. I mentioned earlier that, especially now with AI engineering and everyone's talking about it, it's hard to find the signal from the noise. But the thing is, if you're able to connect your domain right here with the tech, that is really, really rare. Because the thing is, your space, your domain better than I do. Even if I know AI, if I don't know your space, let's say cooking or the food industry, I've met people who had AI startups in the food industry because that's like an underserved market there. But they are passionate about the restaurant industry. They know how it works. They know all the shortcomings of it, and they know how it is to improve. So they saw an opportunity there to go in and actually create a solution for these problems, right? Now, the thing is, why it's important, because you know the right answer of it. You know what it's supposed to look like. That's the difference. If you give it an AI engineer who never done that space before, they'll be blind. They'll be going blind. They would have to rely on someone to give them the answers. And even when they give the answer, they still can't tell. They still have to get the approval. And then you're going to have a lot of back and forth. And that's where, information, be able to explain things clearly, it matters a lot. But if you already know the answer and you're guiding it, you know already if it's going in the right direction, right? You know what the problems people actually need solving. And when you come in to present it to a potential client or an employer who needs this problem, when you show this problem to be solved, they'll jump at it right away because that's a pain point for them, right? Basically, if you have your combined skills of your experience and AI, that's how you stand out. That's how you become the signal from the noise, right? There's a shortage of people who can combine their technical skills with real domain expertise. Yes, every week there's a new buzzword coming out, and that's great. And you probably see on social media flooding of people using examples of it. But what people want are actually concrete solutions to their real problems, right? So figuring out how to combine your existing expertise with these new skills, that's going to make you stand out, because nobody knows what you know. And if you have the AI backing behind it, you're going to be unstoppable. So this should be your mindset here. Embrace feeling dumb, but keep going, because eventually, especially if you do something from end to end and actually complete something and not go down rabbit holes, you'll eventually learn the things you need to know. And basically, you want to learn one thing at a time and go deep. Make sure it's finite, it's measurable. You have an end. Don't keep going on rabbit holes, going down, because you're going to keep moving the goalposts. But if you go to the end, then go back and assess. You could go back and fix one or two things or a bunch of things, but at least you have a benchmark to go against, right? You want to make sure you build, you focus, you show value, build real things, not just collecting knowledge. And you want to connect the tech to the business value right here. That's what's important to it. That's what they care about. And you want to lean into your background, because that's what's going to make you different out here. So you want to make sure you reinvent yourself, and you want to start today, because this is brand new. It's new for everybody here. But if you're going to move forward, you're going to have to reinvent yourself.